Open up the depths of your heart to find eternity and live for more than your eyes can see. Give God the glory.
We left off at Romans chapter 10 and verse 4 in our study last week. I'll put a link to that video right up here. We learned that the goal or aim of the law was Jesus Christ. In other words, the law of Moses cannot save, but Jesus was the intended destination of the law for that purpose. Paul wrote in Galatians 3:22 through 25, "But the Scripture has shut up all men under sin, that the promise by faith in Jesus Christ might be given to those who believe. But before faith came, we were kept in custody under the law, being shut up to the faith which was later to be revealed. Therefore, the law has become our tutor to lead us to Christ, that we may be justified by faith. But now that faith has come, we are no longer under a tutor." Paul said the law kept in custody until the faith would later be revealed. In the next chapter, he called it the fullness of the time. That's when Jesus would come and accomplish what had been written in the law about him. So Jesus was the goal of that law. Paul then goes on in Romans chapter 10 and verse 5, "For Moses writes that the man who practices the righteousness which is based on law shall live by that righteousness." Paul is referring to Leviticus 18 and verse 5. The problem with that, which we studied last week, is that you have to keep the law perfectly. There are two ways of being saved. If you keep God's law perfectly, then you will not have sinned. If you could actually do that, then you would have earned your salvation. Problem with that is we all sin. Since we sin, we end up condemned. That doesn't work out so well. But God's solution, the second way, that actually fixes that. He provided an atonement in the sacrifice of Jesus, and we comply with the necessary details for coming into covenant relationship with Him. We might describe the first way as the path or the approach of salvation by works. God's way is the path or approach of salvation by faith. Earlier in Romans, Paul said, "Where then is boasting? It's excluded. By what kind of law? Of works? No, but by a law of faith. For we maintain that a man is justified by faith apart from works of the law." That's in Romans 3:27 through 28. So this isn't by keeping law perfectly, which is the first approach. This is all about trusting what God has provided by grace or favor and taking advantage of the offer found in that sacrifice of Jesus. Do we have to do anything? Well, of course we do. We can't come to someone while refusing to come. The point here is about trusting what He has done. We're not trying to earn our salvation by meritorious labors that leave us in a position of being able to boast, "Hey, I earned my salvation." We'll talk about the word grace later in our studies, but for now, understand that it refers to favor. God's grace is favor shown toward us, and it has not been earned in any way. That point is emphasized by the next two verses. Romans 10 verses 6 through 7 says, "But the righteousness based on faith speaks thus, do not say in your heart, who will ascend into heaven, that is to bring Christ down, or who will descend into the abyss, that is to bring Christ up from the dead." This is from Deuteronomy 13 verses 12 and 13. It may seem strange that Paul has gone this route, but think about what it would mean as we consider this context. If you reject the salvation already brought by Christ's sacrifice, then are you going to climb up to heaven, pull Him down, and have Him provide a different way of salvation you'd rather have? You can't undo the astounding power of God in redeeming us from sin. You can't change what God has set in place for our salvation. Accept it or stand condemned. It is what it is, and it is precisely what we need. For those who love the law of Moses, Paul now goes on to further quote from Deuteronomy 13 in Romans 10 and verse 8. But we're out of time. So please study that quote and where he goes with it to make his argument. Then join me next week as we continue this study. Remember, we're working our way toward verse 13, calling on the name of the Lord.